Hello everyone, my name is Eden Ovando and this is my week 2 discussion video for MPA545 with Professor Curtis. In this video, I will be covering 4 theories that are found in the Collaborative Approaches to Resolving Conflict textbook by authors Myra Eisenhart and Michael Spengel. I will also be covering 4 articles by authors found within the textbook and connecting and discussing the articles and how they add to what is discussed in the textbook. Attribution theory is located in Chapter 1, Theoretical Perspectives, and can be found specifically on page 4. The theory is explained as people making assumptions based on what is relevant to them, or basically an explanation, people making explanations for or as to why the other party is asking or fighting for something. So people will make up an assumption or an idea about what the other person might be feeling, thinking, what their motives are. The article within this text is The Attributions and Communication in Roommate Conflicts by Siller. In page 4 of this article, Sillers talks about interpersonal conflict and how it can be different for relationships and definitely can change during emotionally expressive conflicts or when there's high stress or also when there are different attitudes. In the article, Sillers uses college roommates as examples. One college roommate decides that the other roommate has a bad personality and that can't be fixed and should just be ignored. And so in this case, the roommate, as Siller states, has entered an implicit theory of the conflict. So they created a concept, an idea, they assumed the other person's behavior and why they're acting that way, and they just decided that they needed to not do anything and just ignore the problem. So this ties back to the textbook in the fact that people make assumptions based on behavior or make an explanation as to why the other party is the way they are, and they will respond that way. In the textbook, equity theory is explained as being distributive based, and people basically being upset when they perceive that they are not receiving fair distribution. The important aspect of this, or the fact, is that we see equity theory being played out most when it has to do with something of value to a person. If this thing were to not have value, then equity theory doesn't seem to show up as much. And if it does have value, then that is when people might be upset when they feel like they're not getting enough of it. The article that I read within this text was Oman's Social Behavior as Exchange. In this article, Oman talks about social behavior as an exchange of goods. And so it focuses on the fact that a person may change their social behavior in order to get them more of something that they value. And so this also ties into the textbook because equity theory deals a lot with distribution and the fairness of it. And so in the article, it's talking about it in terms of behavior. But in the textbook, it's talking about how it just in terms of goods and what a person values. But a person will change, according to the article, a person will change their behavior in order to get more of what they want. And if they continue to get a lot of what they want, then their behavior also becomes less. And so in the textbook, equity theory essentially is being concerned with whether the person is receiving what they want and what they value in a manner that is fair. Conflict theory, specifically the sources of conflict, are found in Chapter 2 of the textbook, and the information that I read about and we'll be talking about now is found on page 14. And knowing the sources of conflict is very important because it gives way to the underlying issues that fuel the conflict. And so some of the things described as being sources in the textbook are data, interests, procedures, values, relationships, roles, and communication. And so each one of these is a source for conflict. It's a source of why there might be conflict. And so it is important to understand what the source is in order to deal with the conflict. And so then an article that was in this text was by Dosh, the title being The Resolution of Conflict, Constructive and Destructive Processes. In this article, Dosh talks about it being useful to know the characteristics of the parties in conflict, and this has to do with the parties' prior relationships, the significance of the issues, the social environment, the strategy and tactics, and these are all tied back to the text. So if we look at prior relationships, then we go back to the textbook's explanation of relationships being a source of conflict. If we go to the issues of significance, then we go to the interests that the textbook talks about. Or if we look at the strategy and tactics, we go back to the textbook's source of data of conflict, which is procedures. And so all of these are important to understand because they all are underlying issues that might fuel conflict. In the textbook, in chapter 3, it talks about the concept of negotiation, and the explanation given in the textbook is that negotiation is the process that fuels and creates collaboration. And some important parts of negotiation are the state of mind and strategic choice for managing problems. So you do need to know these two facts when entering into negotiation. The article that I found within this text is by Keltner. It's titled Mediation Toward a Civilized System of Dispute Resolution. And so in this article there was a section about negotiation, and Keltner talks about it being a peaceful process between two people who have differing opinions or goals and are trying to seek a resolution so that they can both essentially win what they are looking for. And both in this textbook and in the writings by Keltner, it essentially explains that negotiation is the interaction between two people. So the actual willingness to interact in order to get what they find desirable or what they really want. And so they're choosing to interact in order to get that. As I stated previously in this video, for each theory, the articles within the authors that were found within the text reinforce the theories or added to it in a different perspective. So I did learn a lot about the theories and how they can be input into different types of relationships. For example, attribution theory, how the author of the article talked about it in an interpersonal way and how they studied college roommates. And the textbook had a different way of talking about it. And so in negotiation as well, that concept in the textbook was reinforced by the author that was included in the text. And so essentially all of the articles had a lot of value to add to what the textbook was already saying. That is my video. Thank you for watching.